The Detroit Lions aren't just playing football anymore. They're rewriting what this franchise is supposed to be. Jared Goff is slicing defenses like a veteran surgeon. Jahmyr Gibbs is turning every touch into a potential explosion. And Amon-Ra St. is refusing to be stopped, no matter how many bodies you throw at him. This isn't a rebuild. This is a warning shot to the entire NFC.
The Lions running back about the offense in Detroit. Last year, after Ben Johnson left, John Morton got the offensive coordinator job. Roughly halfway through the season, Dan Campbell took over the play calling, and that was that for John Morton. Now Drew Petzing is there, and Jahmyr Gibbs saying some very complimentary things about the offense under Drew Petzing. How far ahead they are this year than where they were last year. And hey, from John Morton's standpoint, it's not an easy task to follow Ben Johnson. You could make the argument that anybody who was after Ben Johnson last year was going to struggle and suffer, because how do you compare to Ben Johnson? You almost needed to have a palate cleanser. You need to have a guy who's going to not work out and then, okay, we've hit the reset button, let's rebuild this thing. So we'll see what Petzing can do. The Lions didn't make the playoffs last year, as every Lions fan knows, but they're still favored to win the division this year. People believe in the Lions. They are supremely talented. And to hear Jahmyr Gibbs say what he said, don't sleep on the Lions. Not that anybody was. For a fourth-place team, has a fourth-place team ever had a higher bar entering the next season? And it is amazing that they ended up in fourth place in the NFC North. And that helps them because your placement in the division determines 3 of your games every year for all the teams. And those 3 games can make a huge difference. And if you get 3 fourth-place teams instead of 3 first-place teams, that could make the margin flip from the Bears, who have the first-place schedule, to the Lions, who have the fourth-place schedule.
It makes it so much easier because they're big time on play actions, right? Jared Goff is big time on throwing the ball downfield. You got Amon-Ra St. you got Jameson Williams. You got those guys that are able to make big plays for them in the pass game. So all it takes is one or 2 runs and then third down, play action, big play downfield.
Yeah, I love that. I love that offense. I really think, when you talk about do they have the pieces, right, for the Super Bowl push? They do. And I believe, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I believe on the defensive side of the ball. This is my concern, though, with the Detroit Lions. When you run man coverage the way that Kelvin Shepherd runs man coverage, it's hard to be an elite defense running that. Now, playing man coverage it's really good against the pass if you have a good pass rush. Now, when you don't blitz, right, they run a certain man coverage where they just depend on the front to get home. You need to have elite pass rushers. You think about the Denver Broncos when they had Von Miller and all of those guys, right? They could each get to the pass rusher. You look at Detroit, the only guy that can really get to the pass rusher is Aiden. And I got something for you guys. There's a huge dip and a huge drop when Aiden is in the game compared to when he's out of the game. When he's in the game, they have a 40% pressure rate. That's third. That's high. That's behind the Vikings and the Broncos. When he's not, it's 22%. That is dead last in the NFL. So there's that part of man coverage. Now, the thing that I hate the most about man coverage is it's not good against the run. Why is it not good against the run? As a linebacker, it takes my eyes off of my keys, right? So on any given play, when I'm reading offenses, I'm reading the running back through the guards. That's what I'm doing. When I'm in man coverage, my eyes are on my man. So if I have the tight end, which normally linebackers do, I can't be aggressive on the run game because I have to look at the tight end the whole time. If he fires off the ball, I don't know whether he's running a route or if he's coming to block me. So I'm even more so passive against that. So when I think about Kelvin Shepherd and I think about this defense, they have the pieces. I just don't like how he runs man coverage so often. Right. You have the pieces offensively, you got them defensively. I just don't like the system, Mitch.
You were saying that I'm not much of a reader. I'm not. It's no secret. But I'm looking at this projected starting offense and defense for the Detroit Lions. And it's going to be hard pressed for me to find another team in the NFL with a more complete team on paper. They have the pieces. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Jameson Williams, Isaac, Tesla, all these guys. And then on defense, a guy who I think, listen, barring injury, which is going to be struck by, everyone's going to get the bug at some point in some capacity in this league. They also have Aleem McNeil, who is one of the most underrated D tackles, and you get to work with him and Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah. Listen, I've game planned against these two. Aleem McNeil gets the credit he deserves in the offensive line rooms and in the protection rooms. You know, it's such a fascinating thing because they weren't atrocious at times.
This is no longer a football story. This is a system shift inside the NFC. Because the Detroit Lions are not rebuilding anymore. They are taking over what this franchise is supposed to be. Jared Goff is not just managing games, he's dissecting defenses like a surgeon under pressure. Jahmyr Gibbs is turning every single touch into a potential 60-yard collapse. And Amon-Ra St. is playing like contact doesn't exist anymore. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. And this offense looks more dangerous after losing its architect. But the real question is not what they look like now. It's how they got here after everything fell apart last season. Last season wasn't stability, it was fragmentation. After the departure of Ben Johnson, the Lions' offensive identity was thrown into uncertainty. Ben Johnson left behind one of the most complex systems in the league, and suddenly the chain of command collapsed. John Morton stepped in. Then Dan Campbell took over play-calling responsibilities. And just like that, Morton's role evaporated midstream. Now enter a new voice, Drew Petzing. And what's alarming is what Jahmyr Gibbs is reportedly saying internally, that this year's offense feels far ahead compared to where they were last season at this point. That is not normal. That is not supposed to happen after losing a system designer. But if the offense looks stabilized, the real danger is what it's built on underneath the surface. The Lions finished last season as a fourth-place team in the NFC North, and that detail is quietly becoming a weapon. A fourth-place finish means softer scheduling, 3 opponents drawn from weaker divisions instead of elite first-place matchups. That difference alone can swing multiple wins across a season. And when you combine that with this personnel group, Goff operating play action at elite efficiency, Gibbs turning hesitation into touchdowns, Jameson Williams stretching safeties vertically, Amon-Ra St. controlling the middle like a possession machine. This is a timing offense built on one mistake becoming 6 points. One run, one fake, one breakdown. That's all it takes. But while the offense looks like a machine, the defense is where the argument turns violent. Because here's the problem nobody can ignore. The Lions, under Kelvin Shepard, lean heavily into man coverage principles. And statistically, that system only survives with elite pass rush dominance. Right now, the numbers are split into two realities. With Aiden Hutchinson on the field, the defense generates around a 40% pressure rate, top tier, third in the league. Without him, it drops to 22%, dead last in the NFL. That is not a dip. That is a collapse. And in man coverage, that becomes lethal. Linebackers lose vision. Eyes are locked on assignments instead of the run. And when the pass rush doesn't arrive, the system fractures. So the question becomes brutal. Can a team with this imbalance actually survive a Super Bowl run? On paper, this might be the most complete roster in football. Goff, Gibbs, St. Williams, rookie Isaac Tisla, a defense anchored by Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil inside. The talent is not in question. What is in question is sustainability. Because championship teams don't just need firepower, they need structure when the fire spreads. And right now, the Detroit Lions are walking a razor edge between dominance and exposure. This is why the league is watching closely. Not because they are surprising anymore, but because they might be approaching something much bigger than that. A full takeover of the NFC or a system collapse hidden under elite highlights. And if that balance breaks, the entire NFC playoff picture doesn't just change. It gets rewritten.
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.